You are live at the second Mobile Technologies for Development 2021. Here is a two-day virtual event, and we're delighted that you've made time to join us. We're live on www.mt4d.org, also on Star 103.5 FM, on Joy 99.7 FM, and also on the Facebook page of the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. We're seeing the messages that you're bringing in. Continue to keep them coming. We are live and we are interactive. Let's bring you now our fourth panel discussion. Loads of conversations, but this time we're switching tack to look at how we can better improve Ghana's digital strategy and digital infrastructure and enhancing connectivity and accessibility. What's a digital ecosystem without access and improved service? The one moderating this particular panel conversation is Estelle Akofio-Sowa, the West Africa Regional Manager for C-Squared and Country Lead for Google. Now, she'll be managing, or shall I say, moderating the panel of Kwekuche Ofori, the Deputy Director General for the National Information Technology Agency, NITA. And then also, we've got Chen Kwan Hong Arthur, the Chief Consultant and Senior Solution Director for Huawei Technologies, and Victor Dodu with MTN Ghana. We're talking how we can improve access and enhance connectivity with this particular panel conversation.
Okay.
Hi, and welcome to the fourth panel of the second Mobile Technologies for Development Conference, with the theme, The Rise of Africa, Promoting Africa's Sustainable Digital Ecosystem. And this morning, we've already had a keynote address from our Honorable Minister of Communication, Ursula Owusu, Communications and Digitization. Ursula Owusu, and also our Vice President as well, both urging on the industry and government to drive Ghana's digital agenda forward successfully. And we've had various panels as well, ensuring that no one is left behind, creating the right policy and regulatory environment. And our last panel before us was on payments. This panel is on the digital infrastructure, enhancing connectivity and accessibility. We're all excited about digital. It's the latest buzzword. I was on a panel recently called digital banking. And for me, digital is all about the customer. It's about putting the customer first and serving the customer's needs. So it's really about being customer centric. But it's the way in which we get online. And without infrastructure, none of this is possible. Digital infrastructure provides the way people, businesses, and governments get online and connect with the global digital economy. And without an effective and all-encompassing national digital infrastructure, and when I use the word national, I mean both what is driven by the public and the private sector, we cannot ensure that no one is left behind. And this has been a great part of the discussion this morning, and definitely our minister set that as a tone as well. So we're looking at how a country can ensure that no one is left behind. And before I introduce my wonderful panel that I have with me, just to let the audience that are watching us and participating in the event throughout various platforms, that you can post your questions by clicking Ask Questions. It's a red icon on the M4D, that's the Mobile Technologies for Development virtual platform. You can also join us through Facebook. I think a lot of people have been finding that the easiest way. And for some time at least, we've also been on radio. You can post your questions through slido.com, and I think you'll see the links to Slido both on the virtual platform and also on Facebook, and use the event number 242633. I've probably confused you along the way. Just go onto Facebook and look for MT4D, and I'm sure you're going to find us and be able to post your questions, and we will do our best to include those in our discussion. So I'm quite pleased to have with me three wonderful gentlemen, and they go by the name of, firstly, I'll introduce our government representative, Kwekuche Ofori. He's a technology entrepreneur and philanthropist. He's currently the acting deputy director for the National Information Technology Agency, NITA, and therefore has the pleasure of working very closely with the minister on a day-to-day basis. When I was reading your bio, Kweku, what struck me was your development passion. And you founded an organization called Ofuri Bow Ties that makes handcrafted wooden bow ties to inspire young men around the power of a well-groomed appearance. And you're looking very well-groomed yourself today, Kweku, so welcome. I'll then leave the shores of Ghana for a minute and go over to welcome Chen Kwan Hong. I hope I've said your name correctly. Also called Arthur, which is probably what I'm going to refer to you as throughout the rest of this program. And Arthur is a chief consultant and senior solution director for National Broadband and Full Fiber Deployment Analysis Office with Huawei. And he has over 20 years of experience in the ICT sector. He's previously worked at Alcatel-Lucent, Hewlett-Packard, and Nokia. So you've been everywhere, Arthur, and all of this has driven your passion about national fiber-based rollouts and next generation data center. So Arthur, you're very welcome, and we're glad to have you back, to have you join us. And last but not least, we'll come back to the shores of Ghana, and I have Victor Dodu on the panel with us. For a minute, I forgot that Victor and I were on a panel, and I started talking about work with him. He's a very difficult man to get. He's extremely busy at MTN. He's the head of network planning. He's been at MTN for 19 years and counting. Pretty much, I believe, has built most of MTN fiber optic network. He's currently in charge of networks planning, both radio and core network for mobile and fixed networks. So if you want to find out more about MTN's network, Victor's the man to find. So gentlemen, I'm very pleased to have you all on this panel. We hope we're going to have a lively discussion. I'm going to try and stop us about 10 minutes before the end so that we can take the questions. And just to remind everyone that's watching us that they can go to the M4D 2021 platform and click on Ask Questions in red, or go to our Facebook Live page. So I'm going to start off with some infrastructure related questions, gentlemen, and kick off asking this first question to Kweku first and then to Victor. So current estimates suggest that nearly $100 billion in investment is required to connect all of Africa to the internet. So that's a huge amount. And obviously Ghana is not the biggest African country, but a portion of that 100 billion, is required for Ghana to connect everyone to the internet. And at C-Squared, sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. Estelle Akofio-Soa, I'm the West Africa manager for C-Squared, which is a wholesale infrastructure provider operating in Ghana, Liberia, Uganda, and Kenya. So honored to be moderating this panel of worthy gentlemen. So 100 billion required in investment. And as I was saying at C-Squared, we absolutely believe that, you know, it's broadband that everyone needs, just like everyone needs a smartphone, everyone needs a color TV, you know, and so that investment is required. So my first question to you, and we'll start with Kweku, what is the role of the state in stimulating fiber optic backbone development? What's the role of the state in developing and stimulating fiber optic backbone development? Kweku, I'll start with you.
All right, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all, Esther and all my colleagues who are here with us this afternoon. You did bring up a very good point, 100 billion to connect all of Africa. And what government is doing, government's role is to making sure that these connectivity gets to every nook and cranny of this nation. What we have quickly come to realize is that government alone cannot do all of the work. And henceforth, we are quickly moving into a phase where we will leverage off other government agencies, especially not one agency or not one ministry will be able to do the work, but rather leverage off government infrastructure across the country, because government has infrastructure all over. So we are working with the ECGs, and I see that C-Square just about yesterday in the news was also collaborated with GRICO to get fiber optics to rural areas. So these are some of the things that we are working with. So we are looking into infrastructure sharing with telcos, taking advantage of government fiber infrastructure like GRICO and ECG. And also, we are also doing some swap deals with other private entities that have connectivity around the country to be able to reach almost every sector nook and cranny of the nation. And I think for technology, for us to be able to be very successful at it and be able to deliver what is expected of us as our mandates, we have to collaborate, and that will be the best way in which technology can thrive. Collaboration between both the private and government entities for us to be able to do better, and that is what we are doing now. We're doing swap deals, we're taking advantage of infrastructure of government that already exists, and we're also working with some telcos to get to our final destinations. Thank you, Estelle.
Yeah, thanks, Kweku, for that. And being a champion of the private sector, we've definitely often raised concerns, you know, that it appeared as if government was more competing than collaborating. So we're definitely glad to see more collaborations happening, more swap deals, as you mentioned, happening as well. So I'm going to move over to the very private sector and to our leading telco, MTN, in the name of Victor. Victor, what would be your response to the question of the role of the state in stimulating fiber optic deployment?
Thanks, Estelle, and good afternoon to all panelists and listeners. Just to pick up from where we could left off, I mean, I like the fact that we are all looking at the swap deals and the sharings and all that. But we all agree that if you look at the deficit we have in the country, we still need to build a lot of this infrastructure. And the way to go is to basically make it easier for all parties that want to deploy this infrastructure to get going without any challenges, right? We need to minimize the time, the duration it takes to acquire these permits to get these deployments in. I mean, we all agree that it takes a lot of effort to get the funding in, but it becomes more frustrating when you have the funds available, but it's difficult to deploy the infrastructure. So we need to work together to minimize that. Once the cables and stuff get in, we also need to look at the maintenance or protection of this infrastructure. We all see the number of cuts that we experience in the industry, and we all have to go back and relocate and redeploy and do all sorts of maintenance activities just to keep the active routes alive. The challenge with all that is this money could have gone into expanding other routes. So if we don't get the state ownership, the citizens protection, and the industry collaborations that we need, this 100 billion or share for Ghana will be even more than we actually thought initially. Of course, we also need to ensure that we are putting in that or making it easier for these deployments to happen, right? So once you see road deployments ongoing, we can easily create a service that access or put that in the ground. So it becomes easy anytime anybody wants to invest or go on that route. So those are some of the things that we need. But just to summarize, sharing is great. It will minimize, duplication is going down. But then if we don't do all the smart things that we need to get to reduce the cost, we will end up taking a big share of this 100 billion. And I don't believe that is what we all want to do.
Thanks, Victor. And you touch on a point that I know is a very sore point for the industry, which is fiber cuts, and the protection that we've been asking for, the cost of maintaining networks, and the need for proper planning when roads, for example, are being planned, etc. And I know these are all areas that the Telco Chamber, who's a lead organizer in today's event, have been championing as well. So it needs to be easier and faster, and that to deploy. And that's a key thing that we need our governments to improve on. So I'm going to move to my second question, and Arthur will be calling on you here, and then Victor, I'll come back to you again on this question. What design and planning considerations are important to ensure that fiber optic network deployments support the growth and development of other key infrastructure, such as internet exchange points and data centers? So, infrastructure without those data centers, internet exchange points, it just isn't sufficient. So Arthur from Huawei, would love to hear your thoughts on this question, and then Victor, I'll come back to you.
Okay. So thanks for invitation for this panel discussion. So as mentioned that the question about some of digital strategy and policies, I would like to probably categorize into the 4 highlights. I think that to Ghana, that will be something we can share for reference. Firstly, the plan. Secondly, the policy, regulation, and the incubation for the ICT talents. So for the first category, it's about the plan. So during the pandemic, everyone probably aware that a lot of economics, some of advanced countries, they have released brand new economic recovery plan against the COVID-19. And furthermore, they also have a brand new digital strategy and the plans. Most importantly, they are focusing on roll out the full fiber, even the 5G infrastructures. So from our studies that we can say, probably for the Ghana or the rest of African countries, we can graph this good timing of the 2021 to release the multi-year plan for the future-proof infrastructure rollout. So we have to set up aggressive but quantify and achievable targets. And secondly, we have to adopt or prioritize the future-proof technology for the network rollout. As mentioned, that I think the optical fiber and the 5G will be I think it will be no doubt one of the best technology in the world, so by far. And the last one will be the investment. Everyone knows that if there is no money, that will be very difficult to push a lot of constructions. So to strike the balance in between the market competition and the investment will be a priority to the public authorities. Back to the policies, as mentioned, I think the guest from the MTN has mentioned about the open access, a lot of something like a right of way. So we would like to drop kind of idea how to optimize the granting procedure of ROW, the right of way, is critical. Secondly, we can also consider about the mandate, the fiber pre-installation into new built buildings. Nowadays, in the UK, the British government just announced that they will amend the law for the new built buildings to make sure that all of the optical fiber could be pre-installed into every new properties. So this kind of policy is quite friendly. As mentioned, that even we are talking about the data center interconnect, it can be also considered like a kind of pre-installed into the data center, something like that. And the last one, sometimes we will ignore, is about the protection for the telecommunication infrastructures. We have seen that in some of the developing countries, a lot of workers, civil workers, they are instantly destroy or damage the telecommunication infra. More ridiculous just happened in the UK that some of I don't know, some of the people, they believe the 5G base station will spread the COVID-19, so they destroy it or burn it. So I think that will be the other way we have to consider in near future. About the regulation, we are talking about a brand new guidelines just been released by the European Union regulator, BEREC. That will be the very high capacity networks. Such kind of guidelines is very productive and meaningful, not only for the Ghana, but for the rest of African countries. So we also believe that one of broadband measurement system could be established by the public authority as well. So imagine that when we are going to push a future-proof digital infrastructure, we have to have a view to see the gap in between the progress and the actual the plan. So we have seen that most of advanced country, or we can say the developing country in the West Europe, all of them have a very good measurement system and so on. Probably I talk too much, but the last point is about the incubation for the ICT talents. So as you say that we should focus on the role of the optical fiber and so on, but I want to drop more ideas for this valuable opportunity. So that's it. So maybe later I can put more comments or ideas. For you.
And we actually have I do have another question that relates to that. So we'll definitely have the opportunity to talk about those other important things. And Arthur, you touched there on a point that's very dear to my heart. And I think it's one that Africa and our governments need to do better on, which is not just having the policy, but actually having the plan. Because a policy is great, but it's high level and removed, and you actually need a plan, and it needs to be implemented. You touched on a point that Victor at MTN already raised, which is optimizing right-of-way application and processing. And then policies around new construction, both for buildings and also for roads, to make sure all of this is constructed future ready and is already fiberized. So Victor, anything that you would want to add to that point around the infrastructure needed to drive the likes of internet exchange points and data centers?
Okay, just a small addition to Arthur's points, right? Whilst we do all this, there's one common thing that we should look at. I mean, how many internet exchange points do we believe as a country we need? So we need to go back to a typical market sizing and try and align that to the ICT policy, so we know exactly what is required at what point. And we can tie all that into what data center is required where in the next 3 to 5 years. Then we look at how to connect all these buildings in preparation for when the ISPs or routers and stuff required in these buildings will be ready. So at that time, we don't have to go back and do a lot of work. I mean, we can just go plug into a building and within a month or two, we are ready to go. But what we see today is there's a long delay. Once you have the idea, it takes a very long time because you need to prepare the infrastructure from scratch to be able to get it to work. So we don't get the speed and agility that we need to get these things moving faster. So once the policy is sorted, we change the right of ways. We should be looking at the technology parks or regional parks where we have all these facilities available. We can then bring in the national fiber backbone into these buildings once and for all. So once you touch one point, you can easily get to any location in the country that you need. I mean, from the subsea cable perspective, we seem to have a lot. There seems to be a lot of capacity, but they're all landing at the shores of Accra. So how do we then move it to the end user? I think that is what we need to work on. And that's the kind of plan we need to go on with the MMDAs who are actually doing the day-to-day planning and then getting stuff done in these areas.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you know a more accurate number. The last data point I had access to indicated that we use probably about 30% of the capacity that lands on the coast of Ghana. I don't know if anyone on the panel has a more updated data point, and I think it really stresses the need for the infrastructure to move that capacity from the coast to where we need it more. Any more up-to-date figure on that 30% consumption? And we've got more heading our way. Google's promising to bring Equiano here. Facebook is talking about landing in Ghana as well. There's a number of data centers now. We have PAX, we have Ethics, we have the NITA data center, we have the Main One data center coming up. And I recently met some people doing research on investing in a data center in Ghana. And I was like, just how many data centers do we need? So let's move on a little bit and talk about adoption and usage. And I think, Arthur, this was leaning to the point that you were raising. So the World Bank states that raising internet penetration to 75% of the population in developing countries would add as much as $2 trillion to our collective gross GDP. And create more than 140 million jobs around the world. So recently last week, Ghana got the good news that Twitter is opening an office here. And there was great excitement, not just because of what it represents, as in Ghana is the best maker of jollof rice. No, I'm on a serious note, is the African country that is easy to do business in from a regulatory perspective, where you can hire skilled labor, etc. But it was also excitement because it's about new jobs coming. And I believe that was particularly exciting for the minister. So we're at about 50%. The last I read an article from GSMA, and it said about 50% of mobile users actually use data in Ghana on a regular basis. And in the way we want to see people using it day to day, it's an intrinsic part of their life. So how are we going to get Ghana to move from 50% to over the 75% that the World Bank indicates is the level we need for it really to have an impact on our GDP? Kweku, we haven't heard from you in a little while. So can I ask you to tackle that question first?
I look at internet, and not long ago in the 1990s, internet just popped up, and now it is the need to have thing. And looking at the use of mobile devices now, majority of people who go into their mobile device are using it for either social media, emails, watching videos, research, shopping, or gaming, right? And looking at how we would like to have internet penetration to the rural areas into almost 75%. For why I said, I see that there's a lot of people, look at a population of 30 million people plus. There's a lot of people who are just not internet and computer savvy, who might not be able to get into using the internet for now. But looking into 2030, 2025, 2030, by that time, the younger population who are coming up, who are now in the age of technology and who are in the age of the internet and who are heavily dependent on the internet for almost everything that they do, we would see a rise in the use of internet past 75%. What is important in the center of all of this is that the right use of the internet as well is very important. The education, the ethics of understanding the internet, the security of it as well, and how people can use that to benefit and grow their businesses or educate themselves or do anything that they want to do. That is critical, and that is something we have to pay attention to. We can't force our way now to get 75% within the short possible time, because the internet still here on the continent is young. We are still growing it. We are still putting the infrastructures together. By giving us the next 10 years from now, I foresee that there's going to be a lot more younger people who are coming out of our universities who are going to be using the internet. Thanks to COVID or not, we will be forced to get into stuff like open universities, where a lot more students would have to go to school online than they would done in the traditional era. So things are going to change. The way in which we're going to do things are really going to change. And henceforth, the internet is going to be the center of it. And most importantly, education is going to be sitting in the center of everything to make sure that people are well educated, who are understanding what it is that they are doing with the internet. It could be a very useful tool to do a lot more things, to do business, to grow your knowledge, to meet people, to do anything that you want on this internet. And henceforth, the 75%, I believe strongly, is going to be achievable. But when we get to the 75%, what are people going to do with it? Are they just going to be playing games on it, or are they going to do business on it? That is what's going to make the difference in regards to us achieving the 75%. And that is where I would like us to focus more energy on, because when we hit the 75%, our data is going to be critical. Our infrastructure is going to be critical. Our security is going to be critical. Now that almost everything is getting connected to the internet and the mobile devices, our payments and everything. I just had an issue not long ago where somebody's phone got stolen, and just realized that your bank account is on there, your social media is on there, your WhatsApp is on there, your email is on there, almost your whole life is on there. You pay your bills on there. So just that device being taken away from you, the person could do so many things with which impersonates you. The person is posting stuff on your social media page for you. It's posting stuff on your Instagram, because you don't have to log in. All of those things are saved on your device. So we have to pay attention to us hitting the 75%. 75% has to be critically achieved in a way which is going to be extremely beneficial to us in a very productive way, so that we do not miss on the fourth industrial revolution. Thank you.
Totally agree with you that our young population, our young demographics is an advantage, and the importance of education and really showing people how to use the internet in a way that is beneficial to them. The challenge is huge, though. And, we regularly see images of, our more remote schools where there's no sign of a structure, let alone electricity, let alone, therefore, devices and internet access. So we've got a long way to go. And even in our major cities, and my children go to a private school, I'm shocked at what they're being taught still. What a hard drive is, what a digital printer is, things that are just so unuseful, useless, and I think one of the things that's critical is for us to build a nation of developers, a nation of coders, that actually we can build solutions for our own challenges. I was looking at and congratulations to the organizers of the event for the 3D virtual platform that we're using. But the audience, the image of the audience in it, they are all not Ghanaian. And I was like, this can't have been built in Ghana. We should be building this for ourselves. And if it was built in Ghana, that image needs to be changed to be more representative of what our audience actually looks like. So Arthur, over to you, because you were beginning to touch on incubation of ICT talent. So do you want to share a bit more on this question?
Yep. Thanks. Firstly, I fully agree with the director say, and I would like to put some of references. Firstly, I just checked my paper that recently we just aware that in Egypt they just released the Digital Egypt Builder Initiative, so-called DEBI, which has been sponsored by their president. The thing is that, just like I mentioned at the first question, that every time when we step into the one issues, for instance, how to increase the penetrations, we always have to position ourselves to a higher level to have an overview. For instance, how to incubate the ICT talent. According to what the director said, I want to put some of others. Some of the public funded programs for the whole citizens to leverage the digital literacy. That will be quite vital. I could give you an example. In my hometown, the government lay funds for a kind of so-called society university. Some of the teachers, they teach the elders how to use the handset, how to use the keyboard, how to turn on a desktop. You know, some of our elders, they don't know it, but this is a way that we can increase the interest for all the generations for use for the broadband service penetration. And furthermore, for the policies, we also aware that in the UK and Greece, they have so-called giga voucher schemes, which means that aside of broadband universal services, the government can also provide a kind of a voucher to subsidize the end user to subscribe the digital service over broadband services. So that will be several approaches we can see, not only from the policies, but also, you know, the incubation scheme. But overall speaking, that I would like to also highlight again, a plan is quite important and quite critical. From our perspective, what if the public authority can get the higher strategic position to promote the nationwide plan, not only for instance, as we mentioned, DCI over the optical fiber rod, even including the incubation, it should be a complete set for the entire, or the bundles of the entire policy and the regulations. I think that would be my input. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a man after my own heart, Arthur. The importance of having an action plan, you know, with timelines, etc. And it has to be all encompassing. You know, ICT is not an island on its own. You know, it feeds into every part of the nation, whether it's agriculture or education, healthcare, you know, business. ICT is a critical enabler. I'm going to ask a last question to Victor that's keeping us in this theme and of sort of the drivers of adoption and usage. Then we've got a couple questions from our audience. And just to remind the audience, if you're watching, that you can get us on Facebook Live and post your questions there, or actually at the M4D 2021 platform. There's a space there for you to post questions. So Victor, just as we wrap up this, and then when we answer those audience questions, I will give my panelists a minute just to share a final thought on everything that we've discussed. So Victor, what do you think the role of income levels and education plays in the adoption and demand of internet? And to me, that question ties into Arthur's last point there, that, you know, you can't just build infrastructure without the skills, etc., and expect that it gets used. And Kweku also talked earlier about how it gets used. It needs to be used in a way that's productive, not just for the individual, but also contributes to the nation. And earlier this morning, our Vice President talked about the importance of increasing the tax-paying number of people, the population that actually pays taxes. So, Victor, last question to you there. What do you think the role of income levels and education plays in the adoption and usage of the internet?
So for me, it is straightforward, right? The educated ones, of course, using ICT as a basic requirement. From that perspective, you realize the more you know, the more you use, right? So education does play a role. For those in schools, those who are working, who need to read some more to keep themselves updated, they still need internet and all that. But what is the biggest limiting factor? It is all about the affordability, disposable income, right?
Yeah.
So whilst we cannot just increase income overnight, we need to find ways of ensuring that the disposable income can meet the requirements, for instance, data requirements. How do we achieve this? We can achieve this by making it easier for the connectivity to get to the people at the lowest possible cost. If I have to go to a remote area and it will cost me a lot to get the permitting and transport network sorted, of course, it will be difficult to minimize the cost for the end user, right? So if the right policies are in place supporting this, then of course we'll end up having the cost go down. So challenges with the permitting or the cost actually does impact the affordability that we all talk about. We also have spectrum availability or logical capacity. If it's easier for me to increase my capacity without investing so much capex, of course, it would end up benefiting the user again. Now, if you look at the other side of usage, it's also about local content, right? The more local content we have, the more usage we have from these users, whether it's a seriously active ICT knowledge person or even somebody who is just coming through it. There must be a reason for him to go online to go and find information, all sorts of things. So we need to really bring it down. The other thing also is, and it ties into the question you asked earlier, we need to bring down the cost of these devices as well, because that is also one of the big barriers. If I have limited disposable income, but the cost of buying this device is lower, of course, I can easily reach that level and get it. So we need to look at, if possible, some local assembly, significant amount of local assembly, so we can drive down the cost. Of course, if we are assembling cars here, why can't we do laptops and phones?
Amen.
So we need to push that agenda too. And we, of course, once we finish, we tie into all this, the addressing national addressing project, credit rating groups in country. Of course, then the banks and financial institutions can step in and do device financing as well. So if we are able to manage this, the disposable income is the real thing. If you cross that barrier, then of course you get into the ICT knowledge or education. But people can learn. Once he has the device in hand, he can play with it, and over time, he will definitely get to know how to use it. So for me, it's more about driving down the cost to meet the available disposable income, and then we can get this usage going up.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I'm going to turn over to audience questions that we've got. And Kweku, I think this question will be good for you. How can we get connectivity to the rural areas? Victor, I'm sure you also have a strong opinion on this, but let's hear what our government through NITA representative Kweku has on that question first.
All right, so I think the best way for us to get connectivity to rural areas is to do things differently. The way in which we've been doing it, connectivity is always digging and putting fiber on the floor. And we are having a lot of issues, and it's costing us a fortune because we are always having fiber cuts. That's why I said that we are moving into the phase of collaboration and also working with other entities who already have infrastructure on the ground. For us, we are looking to do a swap with, let's say, one company we are looking at is Spectrum Fiber, whereby they are worth with Greco, they have power, they have internet over the power lines, and they are in the Western Corridor. So why would we want to go back and go dig all over the place and put stuff on there? If that is a way to get it there, it's going to help, first of all, reduce the price so that it doesn't get so expensive for us to get to our clients who are on that side of the country. Secondly, it doesn't, we see a lot of duplication going on in town. and henceforth is going to reduce that duplication over there. So once we get to the rural areas through doing business differently, doing business the smart way, that is not doing the same old thing where we used to put fiber on the floor or in the ground and we have issues with it. But now we are using the grid code, the ECGs to help, because they already have this power in almost every part of the country, in which we can use their power lines to get into the rural areas. And when we get into the rural areas, we can distribute that to every part of the country. That is going to be a cheaper, faster way in which we can leapfrog and get into a lot more places. And we're also working with GIFIC to get connectivity to rural areas as well. I'm sure people like MTN and Vodafone and all the telcos have been beneficiaries of what GIFIC is doing in the rural areas by putting connectivity in there, in which they can also ride on to get into rural areas. So rural areas is something that is key for us, because for us to be able to connect all our schools, for us to be able to connect all our hospitals, for us to be able to connect all our police stations and all of the government's essential services, we need to have connectivity in these places. And henceforth, we have to look at how we go about doing business and how we do business differently so that we can achieve our goal. And I'm still going to stress on how collaboration is important, because we can't work as an island. We have to work with each other, come up with ways in which we can collaborate together to be able to achieve our goal. Ghana is a very small country, 30 million people. We should be able to connect every single corner of this country and get things up and running. Thank you.
And we should be able to do that way before 2030 as well. Just a little challenge there. Arthur, a question from the audience for you. Any chance of assembling affordable handsets in Ghana? You know, VW is assembling cars here. If Germany can do it, surely Huawei can do it as well.
That's a very challenging question to me.
And I think we don't just want to assemble, we want to make as well. Not just that we bring in the parts and we assemble. Now I'm asking the question for the audience member. But please, their question was any chance of assembling?
I was thinking that I'll go back to my collaboration question, where C Square, MTN, Nita, Vodafone, Tigo, and everybody else who's buying from Huawei will now request that we buy made in Ghana Huawei products, or we stop buying.
Now that's a good movement, a bit like our president's movement around cocoa. So Arthur, we're being friendly today, don't worry. So please go ahead and answer. But yes, we would love to collaborate and make it happen. But what would it take to make that happen in Ghana?
Okay, I will do my best to answer this challenging question, because I was lucky to participate a lot of forum, and this is kind of a FAQ that firstly, I'm not authorized to answer that, but I can give you kind of a general idea of most of a condition that the people will ask. Can Huawei do some of investment or do some of just like you mentioned, assembly factory or some workshop, even the R&D center and so on. We are talking about a ecosystem. Firstly, I once spoke to one of the high-level officers in the other countries. The thing is that when we are doing the investment, just like MTN, now we are talking about an ecosystem. It's an industrial, the vertical and the horizontal industry. Ghana is now have a perfect positions that you got the rapid growth of the mobile money. You have such kind of a robust mobile infrastructure with 4G now. And I'm very excited that actually we have a lot of workshop with MTN that they are willing, a lot of stakeholders, they are willing to invest in Ghana, and Ghana will be probably one of a digital hub in Africa, okay, very soon. So I think when the ecosystem getting mature, for instance, a lot of parts, a lot of components will be sufficiently supplied in Ghana, then that will be a possibility. Huawei will think about the kind of
well, we want to. You can go back to your boss and tell your boss that C Squared, MTN, Nita, Vodafone, many others are ready to collaborate and make that possible. So we have I think we have 4 minutes left. Kweku, I think one question I would like you to ask, and when you're answering it, please also give us your final words as well. And then Victor, I'll come to you for final words as well. What is the government doing to promote a dig once policy?
What?
Kweku, what
I'm
is
sorry,
the
I didn't hear the
government
question.
doing? What is the government doing to promote a dig once policy? It's not an easy question. And I think if I can help you a little bit, it's a topic that many governments bring up and mention. I think the implementation of it is very hard. And it comes back to the word that you have said many times already today, Kweku, which is collaboration. And a mindset change for infrastructure providers, and that includes my dear self and C Squared, to being more and more open to sharing, you know, and recognizing that it isn't owning the infrastructure ourselves that differentiates us. And I did say at the beginning of today's panel that for me, the word digital is the same as being customer centric, you know. And so when we put our customers first, I think that's when things like dig once is going to make sense to all of us, and not just thinking about how I'm differentiating myself and beating the competition, although I understand that we're private organizations. So Kweku, give me your final thoughts on today's platform, on today's discussion as we wrap up.
Well, like I said, we have a lot of, like, for instance, NITA has a lot of fiber on the Western Corridor. We have leased some of those dark fibers to MTN for X amount of years. MTN does not have to go back and dig on fiber. You C Square will not have to go back and dig on fiber. If C Square has connectivity or fiber in a certain part of the country, we can tee in at some point and be able to connect over there. So that is going to reduce the digging that's going on in the country, first of all. That is also going to reduce the cost of maintaining those fibers, because if one person is maintaining it, no customer would know who.
I need to get you to give me your final word. Sorry, Kweku. Your final word to wrap us up on today's discussion. And I think your word is collaboration.
Collaboration is the word. Collaboration is the word. And also let's think about how we're going to take advantage of the new technologies that is coming, because if we're going to move into the 5G era, AI and stuff like that, how are we going to benefit of it? Because we have been talking about it as a country for a while. How are we going to use that to improve our health? How are we going to use that to improve our environments, our culture, our businesses, and everything that we do? So that would be my final word. That would be my full of thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Kweku. Victor, over to you for a final word from you.
Thanks, Estelle. I mean, just to wrap up, I see there's a lot of collaboration in the industry today than it was 5 or 10 years ago. And I believe we can still move it a little further, right? But what we just need to do is maybe come together and have one industry agenda or capacity requirement. That's the only way you can see us having this dig once policy kickoff, right? But at the same time, the requirement across the providers are not close enough. So that is the only gap that I see. So we need to work together to overcome that challenge. And whilst doing that, I mean, putting the new infrastructure in, I'll go back to my initial point. Whatever infrastructure which is already in the ground needs to be protected. Otherwise, we'll come back after a year or two to redo what we have done. So we need to protect this infrastructure, make it easier to permit for permitting and then deployment of this infrastructure as well. So all MMDAs, all authorizing or permitting agencies need to get on board. I don't believe it's just the telcos, NITA, ISPs, C Squared, and a lot more collaborators to overcome this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Victor. Arthur, a final one word from you.
Action plan.
National
we need
plan.
to take action. Yeah, we need a national plan, action plan for that.
And so here's my summary. Thank you all so much. Collaboration, clear national plans, optimizing right-of-way, protecting digital assets, and building skills and local content, cost of devices as well would be my summary in terms of our responses here to our discussion on digital infrastructure, enhancing connectivity and accessibility. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed having you. I hope you've also enjoyed being on the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
All
too.
right, bye.
You're live, the Mobile Technologies for Development 2021, and we're delighted that you've made time to join us. I am Francis Aban, your Master of Ceremonies for this two-day virtual event. Now, before we move on to our final panel discussion for day one, let's remind you that some main sponsors have ensured that this fantastic conference put together by the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications and Financial Inclusion Forum Africa has become a reality. They are ADB, Huawei, Absa, MTN Momo, Airtel Tigo Money, Vodafone Cash, Fidelity Bank, G Money, Emergent, Gibbs, UNCDF, Lechego, ZPay, Global Accelerex, and more. And of course, media partners, EIB Network, that is GH1 Television, Star FM, MX24, Daily Graphic, and Joy FM, making it possible for us to enjoy the full value of this second Mobile Technologies for Development 2021. Here are some more messages from our sponsors.